And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to talk about Bradley Beal and his name being brought up in trade rumors. And already we have a comment coming in from Brennan Garcia saying Bradley Beal to Denver. That would be something. That would really be something. That might actually be what the Nuggets need to put them over the top. And what would make it even more hilarious is if the Nuggets decide to trade Russell Westbrook in order to bring Bradley Beal over. Because I think that would be hilarious. Because this would be another season where Russell Westbrook gets traded. Because this always happens to him. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. And again, that's actually that's a pretty solid trade idea, honestly. I doubt that the Nuggets are willing to give up somebody like Jamal Murray in that package, but that is interesting. That is definitely interesting. One team that I really did not think about, and the Denver Nuggets, they are a team that sort of needs to. Well, they don't really need to make a move, but if they really want to be contenders, it seems like they might have to. I don't know. I feel like they just got to get their act together because they're not hitting nearly enough shots as they should. And they're relying a little bit too much on Jokic. And I think part of that is just because Jamal Murray has not been playing like the ridiculous shooter that he is when he goes up against the Lakers. But again, that might be why they want to start trading. So we'll see how this works. But essentially, Bradley Beal's name has sort of been all over trade talks. And it's been resurfacing a little bit more ever since he came off of the bench in the most recent game. Also, Manzano's in the chat. Does this show the incompetence of the ownership of both the Giants and the Dolphins that they're keeping their current general manager and coaching staff instead of cleaning house? No, I don't. For the Giants, at least, no. Because the Giants, they hire and fire. They hire and fire every single time. They can never really establish an identity and a winning formula for their team, primarily because they keep hiring and firing, and they keep hiring and firing. So I don't think you clean house just yet. I think you keep Brian Daboll. You could probably get rid of Schoen because of that decision to get rid of Saquon and keep Daniel Jones. But at the end of the day, Schoen has made some really good moves at the GM and has acquired a lot of talent. And he's pretty solid at drafting these players. So, again, that one big mistake I don't think should really define him. But that's just me. Now, back on the Bradley Beal stuff. And he came off the bench. And ever since he came off the bench, now teams are like, well, the media is starting to think like, okay, well, it doesn't seem like they really want Bradley Beal because he's getting paid all of this money to come off the bench. Like, what is that? So it re-sparked some controversy that he might end up getting traded. And this is a problem, though, because Bradley Beal, on his contract, he has a no-trade clause. So that kind of stinks for the Suns. However, one thing that does not stink for the Suns is the fact that he is open to trading. He's definitely open to being traded. But the problem with this is that now that you can't really like send him to a team that's not in a contending position, and that makes things a little bit worse because you might threaten the other team getting better when they have Bradley Beal, as opposed to getting rid of Bradley Beal and acquiring talent and not having to worry about the team that Bradley Beal is on because they aren't going to do anything in the postseason, right? So Bradley Beal, he talked about the new role that he has coming off the bench. Coach made a decision. I'm not going to sit there and argue with him. I'm not going to sit here and be a distraction. I'm not going to sit here and be an a-hole. So, you can connect the dots. It's hard to read like too much on what Bradley Beal said, but he did one thing that everyone is talking about that he did say was that he holds the cards, thanks to his no trade clause on his contract, and that was the one thing that really stuck out in the post-game interview. And if reports are to be believed, there are only 3 teams that would get him to take the plunge in the no trade clause, and Beal is open to trade to 3 really big teams. So John Gombardo weighed into this matter, and he noted that Beal would waive his no-trade clause for 3 teams: the Lakers, the Miami Heat, and the Nuggets, which opens up a whole new can of possibilities for where Jimmy Butler could end up if they decide to do a player swap with Jimmy and Bradley Beal, sending Jimmy over to Phoenix and sending Bradley over to Miami. Could be something crazy. The Lakers, on the other hand, that's also another crazy move. I mean, the Lakers, they do need that one guard. Like, they always say, like, they're ready to put this blockbuster trade, and then, lo and behold, they just get rid of D'Lo. Like, blockbuster trade, ladies and gentlemen, for the Lakers. But if he does get traded to LA, I'm curious who LA would have to give up. And I'm also wondering whether or not that would really work like that. I'm not entirely sure just how much that would work. I mean, the Lakers, they do need the scoring, yes, but they also do need the defense. And I don't know if they really got all that. Bradley Beal would fit very well in the system, don't get me wrong. But I don't know. I'm not a really... Bradley Beal in the playoffs, they don't really mesh that well. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Maybe I'm just, recency bias. But again, Bradley Beal in the playoffs, they don't really mesh, The Nuggets, on the other hand, that is probably the one team that I think would actually, like, of all those teams, I think that team would work very, very well for Bradley Beal. We know Jokic, he makes his teammates better. And he turns good scorers into great scorers. He turns good shooters into great shooters. And don't ask me how, he just does it. And the question is, are the Nuggets going to get rid of Jamal Murray to get Bradley Beal? I highly doubt that. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to get rid of Russell Westbrook, despite the good that Russell Westbrook has brought to the team. He also brings a lot of bad things, but, that's Russell Westbrook for you. He brings good and he brings a lot of bad. So you sort of have to pick and choose. They might give up Michael Porter Jr. Again, I think that's a terrible idea because, completely different positions. And even though Michael Porter just, shoots the ball for no apparent reason, I still think he's pretty solid on both ends of the floor. Solid. He's not a good defender, he's a solid defender. And, his height makes things a little bit more difficult for... Granted, he's more known for just chucking the ball up whenever he gets a shot, but shooters shoot. And I think Bradley Beal is more or less going to do the same thing. But yeah, him being on Phoenix is definitely not working because Phoenix lacks the defense. Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, they're really bad at defense. Kevin Durant is okay at defense, but again, he's more known for being an offensive-minded player. And the big reason why Kevin Durant is okay at defense is because of his length and, his wingspan, being able to get contests and being able to get blocks and cover a lot of ground with his length. That's really the big reason. That's not to say he is a bad defender. He's not a great defender. And the Heat is probably the most interesting option. Like, again, interesting. Not the best, but most interesting option. Because, Jimmy Butler also wants to part ways. And Jimmy Butler is also interested in going to the Suns. So perhaps this could be, a little bit of an avenue worth pursuing for Bradley Beal and for, each of those organizations. And, I mean... the fact that he got demoted to being on the bench, a little bit too much if you ask me. The way I see it, you can balance the minutes of each of those 3 players, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal, with the bench and with the starters. You can balance that with the substitutions rather well, in my opinion, and I don't think putting Bradley Beal on the bench is the ideal situation, if that makes sense. I don't think that's the best move. And it definitely does not... That move definitely shows that, he's a little bit expendable, at least in the opinion of the Suns. And you kind of don't want that. I mean, you don't want a player to feel like he's expendable, especially with the amount of money that Bradley Beal is making on his contract. I mean, let me go ahead and check how much money he's actually making on his contract. I just know it is a lot of money. The big numbers you tend to forget most of the time. So his salary this season alone is going to be $50 million. That is a lot of money for somebody like Bradley Beal. Like, he was good, he was worth it when he was on Washington, but this is hefty sums. This is hefty amounts of money. And then in the next year, in 2025 to 2026, he's going to make $53 million, and then after that, he's going to make $57 million. Like, that is a lot of money. That's a huge amount of money. And his contract is 5 years, $251 million. Like, that is a lot of money for Bradley Beal, someone who I genuinely don't think deserves that money anymore. And that's also going to affect a lot of teams wanting to trade for him, because are they really going to want to give Bradley Beal all that money? I'm not entirely sure if they're going to want to give him that much money, but we'll have to see how that goes out, how that works out. But that's all I have in this third segment. Let me know in the comments where you guys think Bradley Beal is going to end up after the trade deadline, I guess you could say. So now we're going to go ahead and go into the fourth segment, speaking of trades, where I talk about some of the worst trades in NBA history, and we're going to talk about the most recent one with Karl Anthony Towns being traded over to the Knicks. I'll be right back after this short break, so be sure to stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.